We begin at 8:30. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm half a minute too early.
It's okay. We let you in half a minute too early. Don't worry. We love having you.
We begin at 8:30. Early.
No, you're fine now. It's okay. We let you in half a minute too early. Don't worry. You're fine now. You're fine. Who else shows up this morning? Okay. Let's see who we got.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Good morning, Yosef.
We are, and one more, and we are ready to roll. Our students are coming slowly but surely. Ready to roll. Okay. And bonk. And now we're going to put up the Gemara, and we're going to begin to study.
Well, brave people coming through all that snow and wind. And,
yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to come to a class these days in the snow on Zoom.
It reminds me, Joe, it reminds me when I had my four-wheel drive Toyota wagon, and I told somebody that I could never get stuck anywhere.
And you got stuck?
Yeah, 2 minutes later after I started bragging.
Do you know that?
A Kanina Hara.
Do you know the definition of a four-wheel drive vehicle? The only thing that does, it gets stuck in the forest, deeper in the forest.
Oh, you're such a cynic, my Yossel.
Well, I had good luck with, except when I tried to drive through a snowbank. That didn't work.
No, when I had the Suburban, I used to go around schlepping people out of the snowbanks and bringing people to shul. I almost had a whole minyan in there once. No one wanted to come, so I said I picked them up, and I had 6 people for the minyan in the truck.
Yeah, sure, of course.
That was the. I had this old Suburban that basically could go through anything.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Terrific.
We will now begin our Torah study. So let us go to new share, and we're going to find Sefaria. Where did you go, Mr. Gemara? Okay, Sefaria. Bonk. And there we are. And Talmud. Let me get my book, because I like a nice old-fashioned book. Okay. Here we are. And we get our little book here. Okay. And we're still in Eruvin. There's lots of interesting Aggadot in Eruvin.
Rabbi, I was going to ask you while you are doing what you're doing, is in Sparia, I could get to the Eruvin and I could do all of this. The only thing I couldn't get is to the page I wanted.
There is, if you look, when you know what, I'm going to show you now. I'm going to show you now while I share. Okay, watch how I get there. Okay.
Okay.
Do you see it? You see the main Svaria page on here now?
No.
Can you see it now?
Sefaria.
A living library of Jewish texts.
Right, now watch what I'm doing. Watch carefully. Start at the beginning. You go to the left hand. and you scroll up to Talmud. You see?
Yeah.
You press Talmud.
Yeah.
You press Seder Moed Eruvin. You see?
Yeah.
Now you go here. See this little jijik here?
Where
See where my
are you?
hand is?
No. The problem is that your hand disappeared.
The pointer is right
okay.
here.
Yeah.
You see it now?
Yeah.
And this is for everyone. Okay, go on the little jijik and you scroll down till it says daf. See?
Oh.
Here's all the pages.
That's what I was missing, exactly, the pages.
That's why I showed it to you.
Eruvin, what number?
Well, you did it so fast.
What number are we doing?
I'm going to show you in a second.
I'm on it.
You're on it. Okay.
I wanted to get back because I was very interested in 21B or A or whatever. B.
Okay, but we're not there. Okay. So here we are. We're on page 96A. Everyone sees it? Good morning, everyone. You all see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
96A.
96A. Yeah, Bob likes using his own
Chapter 10.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
So let me explain where we are. So what we're talking about over here is the Aggadot gets launched in the following way. What do we say here? So the point is that if you find tefillin on Shabbos, you're allowed to move them to a safe place, even though they are you don't use their muktzah because you don't use them on Shabbos. Now, so.
It's
and there are two readings. There are two readings of this Gemara over here.
By Akiva of the Gemara.
Right. So there is a Tana who holds that Shabbat is the time of tefillin. We just don't put them out. Elahai Tana, this one who holds that Shabbat is not the time of tefillin. The Tanya we learned in the Braita, Michal bat Kushi, Michal, the daughter of Cush, which means to say the daughter of Shaul, who was the son of Kish. Hoyta menachat tefillin, she used to put on tefillin. Ve'loi Michal b'chachamim, and the chachamim did not protest against her. Even though, generally speaking, a woman doesn't put on tefillin. But a very righteous woman who does so in private, we don't complain. If she knows the whole Torah like Michal Bashol and keeps the whole Torah like Michal Bashol. Otherwise, do not try this at home. V'ishto shel Yonah, and the daughter of Yonah. The wife of Yonah, she used to go up the 3 pilgrimage festivals, not just Pesach, when everyone has to eat the Korban Pesach. But she went up the 3 pilgrimage festivals that only men are required to, and the Chachamim did not protest. Says the Gemara, since the Chachamim did not protest, Alma Kasavri, they held, mitzvah tasei shelo zaman gramahu, that this is a positive commandment that is not bound by time. But the Gemara says, no. Maybe the Gemara holds like Rabbi Yossi, who holds that these are mitzvahs shasei shazman grama. But there are many things that a woman isn't required to do that she's allowed to do if they want to. Amar Noshin Somchos Rishos, who holds that women can place their hand on the animal. Normally, you place the hand on the sacrificial animal. You place both hands on it, only men have to. But women are allowed to if they want to. If you won't say so, the wife of Jonah, who went up to the pilgrimage festival and didn't protest, how can you say that it's not a positive commandment that's time bound? Of course it's a time bound. But what does it mean to say it's optional? So that's why women shake lulav, and that's why women hear shofar, and because these are time bound mitzvot that women took upon themselves. Tefillin we don't do today, except for Michal and the Baal Shem Tov's daughters and other people, because you're not allowed to think extraneous thoughts in tefillin. So if you're a man, you have no choice. You have to put on tefillin. You probably have transgressed the sin of thinking something other than holy thoughts in tefillin, because you're not allowed to think any mundane thoughts in tefillin. A woman who doesn't have to, unless she's sure that she's never going to think one mundane thought ever in tefillin, shouldn't put on tefillin. Okay? So that was that little bit of Aggadot here.
Oh, that must make women feel so warm all over.
Who cares? What's right is right. What's true is true. Who cares how people feel, Yossel? What is
Well,
this? Touchy-feely Judaism or real Judaism?
Well, that's exactly the point. In Bethel, there are women that are putting on.
We're not talking. Listen, in Bethel, they let them. They say you don't have. Okay, you know what? I have this being broadcast. I shall not criticize my fellow Jews, but clearly there are profound differences theologically between B'nai Torah and Bethel, and I shall say no more. Okay.
It's changing as we speak.
What's changing?
This whole issue of what women
Depends
can
on
do,
Torah
what
learning.
women cannot
Yes,
do.
but in tefillin, no. There's a few people who do and most don't, and we don't know what people do in private. I'm sure there are many righteous women who meet this characteristic, but they don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah.
There have been women even in the last generation who, like I say, the Baal Shem Tov's daughter supposedly put on tefillin, but in private. They only found out because when she died, they found a pair of tefillin in her room. Okay.
Rabbi, how does one protect oneself not to have mundane thoughts wearing tefillin?
By staying focused and taking off your tefillin right after davening. But you don't have a choice because you have to put on tefillin, but it's a big avera to think any extraneous thoughts. That's why when they start discussing football blah at the beginning of davening, I tell you to save it for later. Because even the Patriots are not a holy thought.
That's a mundane, now especially.
Well, now everyone is following the Patriots in exile, right? In exile in Tampa.
They have a lot of
right.
They moved?
Future.
No, but three of their top players decamped en masse to Tampa this year.
Okay.
So the three top players who were on the Patriots are now in Tampa. So all the New Englanders are following them.
Yeah.
It's like all the old people from Massachusetts moved to Florida. It's al bizarre. So all the senior citizens from the Patriots moved to the Buccaneers. All the Alta players. Okay. Now, so let's get back to our discussion. So this is a long discussion about tefillin and all that. That's not relevant to Aggadot. So now we're going to move on. Okay. Let's see what we're going to do. Okay, you know what? It is time to move to the next tractate, which is Psachim. We move quickly because there isn't that much Aggadot in Eruvin. And with Psachim, we're going to discuss speaking nicely. This is actually very important. So we're going to go back to
Psachim.
Well, that's the next tractate in Seder Moed.
What number are you going on?
I'm going to go to 3a.
3a?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 1, 3a. Got it.
Psachim. Now, so we're now going to discuss the idea, that the Torah is very careful about saying unpleasant things unless it has to. So legally, we say unpleasant things. But if we're only telling a story, we speak obliquely and in a roundabout way because a person must be always careful to speak in as genteel a manner as possible. Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, "La'olam al yotzi adam davar maguna mipiv." A person should never say anything unpleasant, anything crude from his mouth, because the Torah added 8 letters. We know how precious letters are in the Torah, and didn't want to say something unpleasant, as it says, from to Noach, from the holy animal, from the pure animals, and from the animals that are not pure. It could have said behemoth tmeah, the impure animals. So where the Torah is telling us a law, we say pure and impure, and so on. But where it's just telling us a story, he went out of the way, even though it took an extra 8 letters, to say animals that are not pure rather than to use the word impure. So a person should be very careful with their language to speak nicely. So Rapapa Amar Teisha 9 letters, because it says if there'll be a man who is impure, Mikre Laila, something that happened at night. And it could just say that he had a seminal emission, but it doesn't. It could just say he had keri. Ravina says 10 because it says Tahor with a Vav. So in other words, he could have said explicitly that he had an emission. Instead, we speak in a roundabout way to demonstrate the importance of speaking in a highly appropriate and non-crude way. Tana de Rabbi Yishmael, the Yeshiva Rabbi Yishmael taught a person should always speak in as clean, as far away from obscene language as possible, because by a zav it says that which he rides upon. But by a woman who has the same tuma, the same ritual impurity, we say Moshe, Vasit. Why? As it says, speak nice language and let your lips speak clearly. In other words, speak nice words. So writing has a certain, non-modest implication about it. When one sits on a saddle, so we're super careful not to use that language. So now you're going to tell me that a woman, we don't say Merkov by a woman. Doesn't it say in Rebecca and her children got up and rose on the camels? Answers the Gemara, there it's normal. In other words, normally a lady doesn't sit with her legs apart, but camels are big and tall and scary, and therefore it's appropriate. In other words, that's like the famous question they asked Rabbi Vaji Yosef, that if a woman who's mountain climbing or in certain units in the army, you know that in the Israeli army, religious girls can wear skirts. But there are certain activities, such as paratrooping and flying an airplane and so on, that you have to wear trousers. Rabbi Vaji Yosef said, since it's a danger not to wear trousers, they're allowed for that as purposes. Same thing if you're mountain climbing or something. So by the same token, even though normally a woman rides side saddle, here it's you get shaken off the camel. It wouldn't be a good thing because camels are very high up. So it's appropriate to ride on the camel, and therefore it is not considered immodest. This is an important rule. Any time that someone's in danger, we choose safety over modesty. Not like in Saudi Arabia when there was a girls' high school, there was a fire. So the guards locked the doors because the girls were in their nightgowns and everyone burned to death. We don't do that sort of thing. It's happened about 8 years ago in Saudi Arabia.
Pants are immodest.
What happened? What happened 8 years ago in Saudi Arabia?
There was a fire in a girls' high school, so they have guards there to make sure nothing inappropriate happens, male guards. And they decided the girls couldn't escape in their nightgowns. It wouldn't be appropriate, so they barred the doors and everyone died.
Oh my God.
That's why the Gemara is telling us. So the answer is, Bob, that the general halacha, though again, not every, obviously some people, not everyone keeps every halacha, but the fact is that the general premise, certainly of all Ashkenazic authorities, is that the appropriate garb for a woman is a skirt or a dress, and nothing that shows the separation of the legs. That being said, as I explained, where there's a danger issue or a safety issue, even on a very cold day, if you're wearing a coat and a snow suit or something, that's appropriate. That's what we learn from here. That it's not, in other words, it's not immodest to say that Rebecca rode the regular way in a saddle on a camel, because we don't want you to think that she rode side saddle, which would be dangerous on a camel. So we have to, in other words, the Gemara is really telling us something important here. We have to be modest, but safety comes before everything, and saving life comes before everything.
So in other words, they ride like Lady Godiva. Sideways.
Yossel, that is definitely inappropriate language. Mashum Banov. Mashum Banov. Orcho. Now, so the Gemara goes on to say, so what about Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe took his wife and his sons and gave them and caused them to ride on the donkey. The answer is because of his children, because children ride. It says, with regards to Abigail, who came to beg, so David and his men guarded Naval and his sheep and his shepherds. And then afterwards, he asked for some food, and Naval told him, go you know where, which we're not going to say because we speak nicely. So he wanted to kill Naval. So he wanted to kill Naval. So Abigail came down, Naval's wife, to beg him not to hurt him. So it says she was riding on the donkey. So she was a fine Jewish woman. Why would it say she's riding? That's immodest. So the answer is, again, to teach you that she should be riding and not side saddle, because it was at night. Because of the fear of night, you never know what happens at night. The donkey could see something that scares it, or it could slip off the path. If you're riding side saddle, you could take a bad spill. So we're Dafka saying she's riding to tell you that she Dafka rode in a safe manner and not side saddle. Again, to teach you that safety always comes ahead of modesty.
I always thought Abigail was probably one of the smartest women.
It says so in the Gemara. It's not just Yossel. The Gemara says so.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It says she was both.
Well, thank you for letting me know.
It says that she was both the wisest and most beautiful woman of her time. Viba Yasena.
Yeah.
You want another answer?
The way she handled her husband. Oh my God.
And
he ended up having a stroke.
Mashum Biatuta Delela. Because of the danger of the night. Maybe not. In other words, another says no. We're not afraid of the night, but because she was afraid of David. But maybe she was afraid of the mountain because she came down a mountain. So at any rate, so the Torah doesn't say the word Tomei. So the answer is, where you can speak regularly, you do. But if it takes too long to speak regularly, then you speak in a short language. So at any rate, we go through this whole business. But the point is that that there's 2 points made here. One, that a person should always speak in as nice and not just clean, but as nice and a way as possible. And not to call, as we'll see, like the Gemara says, a person shouldn't say, I'm tired like a pig, but use a kosher animal. And the other thing is, though, so we don't speak about women in an immodest manner, but if a woman needs to engage in behavior that we would see as immodest, because it's safer, so the Torah dafka goes out of its way. It's interesting because the Gemara doesn't explicitly point this out, but it's clear from the Gemara's examples. The Torah dafka goes out of its way to tell you that they were riding in a safe way, even though it might not be the most modest way, because safety always comes first.
I didn't
and
understand.
The lesson is obvious.
Rabbi, what about fear of David? What does that mean?
Well, because David wanted to kill Naval. She didn't know if David would hurt her. So she wanted to be able to run away on the donkey quicker. She knew the path. She could get away. Because Naval had described David as a brigand, as an outlaw. So she didn't know. Once she met David, she understood that he wasn't an outlaw.
Yeah, she saw something in him right
Not
away.
only that, but it's very interesting because there's a Gemara elsewhere that discusses that they had a halachic argument. David said that I've been anointed to be king of Israel, and Naval, by refusing to help me, is rebelling against the king, which carries the death penalty. So Abigail answered him, no, because the anointing doesn't make you a king. It's that the Jewish people accepting you upon them as a king that makes you a king, like we discussed in another class another time. So since the Jewish people have not accepted you as their king, so you are not a king yet, and you have no right to execute my husband, even though he's a you-know-what. Abigail was clearly not very happy with him. So at any rate, that night he died, and Abigail actually became David's second wife, because his first wife had been taken away from him by Shaul. Michal, the daughter of Shaul, Shaul didn't let David go with David, and she stayed stuck in Shaul's palace, or whatever he had.
But she married him eventually.
Afterwards, they got together again. Yeah.
Does the correct language also apply to political correctness? For instance, should the name of the Cleveland baseball team be changed to the Cleveland Native American?
So that's a good question. So it really depends on look, if the team was called like the Cleveland Kikes, which is a derogatory name for Jews, or the Cleveland, N-word, right? So then that would be a thing. The Cleveland is more comfortable because a lot of Native Americans call themselves Indians. So I think you would have to consult the local tribes and see how they feel about the matter. That's what I would say. But political correctness can definitely go too far. In other words, telling everyone they can be whatever they decide they're going to call themselves that week might be a bit much.
We haven't seen anything yet.
Thus spake the oracle of Longmeadow. Okay, we shall see. Yossel, we'll see if you're right. Hopefully we've reached the high water mark of this machine.
We're already seeing. He signed so many, what do they call them? Executive orders, more than all the previous president put together. Can you imagine?
Yeah, well, that's politics. We don't do politics here, Yossel. Okay.
It's just the beginning. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so now we're going to talk about genetics.
Oh, my favorite.
In other words,
subject.
we know that there were 12 tribes of Israel. And we know that 10 tribes were exiled, but that Yirmiyahu, the Talmud tells us, brought up members of each of those tribes. So of the 10 exiled tribes, Yirmiyahu brought back many. So there really among us, there are people from all these tribes. And that's the reference here, that each of the tribes has a given genetic character, a given character. Hahuda Mardunu Dunu, there was a guy who always says, let's go to court. He's always running to court. Amri Shemamina, the rabbi said about him, from this we see that he comes from the tribe of Dan, because it says Dan shall judge his nation, like one of the tribes of Israel, that the tribe of Dan were notoriously litigious, because their name is Dan.
He is done.
There was someone who used to walk around saying, Akef Yamaya Sisasne Birasa, that the little bushes on the sea are as beautiful as cypresses in an oasis, because he loved the sea. Badku vashkachu, they found him from Zvulun. It's written that Zvulun shall dwell by the seashore. The tribe of Zvulun dwelt by the sea. They fished. They took ships all over the world. They were seafarers. They made glass out of the sea. In other words, they were sea people. They were seashore people. So they loved the sea. Like you find that people who live by the sea, even though it's rough and there's big storms, they love it and they don't want to live anywhere else. They're unhappy if they're not near the sea.
Rabbi Edelman used to say that Yosef Stambowski, that's the father of Sue Scott, was from the tribe of Zvulun because he was in the Navy.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
All right.
So the idea is that even many years later, people have the characteristics of the tribe from which they come. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, tomorrow we're gonna learn, we're gonna skip a little bit, of course. And we're going to learn about the idea that a mitzvah guards you, because it's true that mitzvot provide guardianship, but there are some caveats, and that's going to be on 7-2, as we shall see. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you all have a very wonderful day. All the best.
Thank you,
All
Rabbi.
aboard.
Thank
See
you.
you today for
Thank
lunch.
you.
Remember, we're on today, but off Wednesday. All the
Thank
best.
you, Rabbi.
Yeah, take care.
Okay.
12:30?
See you at 12:30. 15 minutes of Torah. Grab a lunch and grab some Torah.